Hi viewers, welcome to another episode of Tobago Chronicles, a retrospective look at Tobago's contribution to national development and the individuals and institutions that were very present in these initiatives. Now, as you would have seen in the previous episode, we were dealing with the period of the 1980s. We will continue to look at Tobago's contribution in the 1980s, and in the second segment, we would have Saluting Push, and our co-host, Anne-Marie, will be having one of the outstanding youth builders to speak with her about what they were able to gain and how they benefited from their presence in Youth Build. So stay tuned for the second segment. Right now, we'll cut over to the opening segment, Tobago Icons, Tobago Legends. Let's go. This really is a chronicle of the trailblazing accomplishments of Tobagonians in broad areas of endeavor within the political administration as well as in terms of societal endeavors. Successive PNM administrations till 1986 relied on Tobago intellect and expertise to chart and execute policies that issued national progress in foreign relations, agriculture, policing, education, culture, and public finance. Other Tobagonians were trailblazers in the sporting arena, business, music, and the arts. Larry Yearwood announced to the national fraternity that Tobagonians and African descendants in general had a high pedigree in lawn tennis and would not be limited to the role of ball boys when he captured the national lawn tennis title at age 15 in Port of Spain. Within 3 years, he was established the #1 player in Brandon Cup tennis, which was contested annually among the Caribbean countries. In 1979, Yearwood became the first tennis player to appear in the multi-sport event, the Pan American Games. Tobago's mastery in the protective services reached its zenith in 1974 when a Mason Hall boy became the first national to attain the position of police commissioner. Eustace Bernard had an exceptional career in policing up to the retirement of Tony May from our local constabulary. It was under Eustace Bernard that a number of special units emerged requiring levels of specialization in policing. Tobago still made more contributions, with a Palatavere boy rising to become the Secretary of the African, Caribbean and Pacific Group, then the largest trade bloc in the world. In the diplomatic service, Reginald Dumas was emerging as a dynamo in foreign relations in Africa and later the USA and India.
And I was one of 16 people from throughout the English-speaking Caribbean chosen to form the nucleus of the federal government foreign service. And we were sent off for training. Academic training. I was sent to Geneva, Switzerland, to the Graduate Institute of International Studies there, followed by a practical stint in a British mission, a British High Commission or British Embassy or British Consulate General. I was sent to the British Embassy in Rome, and I did a stint also at the British Consulate General in Naples. But while we were all there doing this course, all 16 of us, there was a referendum in Jamaica.
Oh, that time.
This was in '61, to give the Jamaican people the opportunity to say whether they wanted Jamaica to continue to be in the Federation or not. And the people of Jamaica voted against. Now, there were 10 units of the Federation, and this led to Eric Williams' famous statement, 1 from 10 leaves naught. So, there I am in Italy, and because the academic year in Geneva had finished, so I got off to Rome. There I am in Italy, and I'm told, well, the Federation has in essence collapsed. I finished my training in Rome, and I came back home. And in December, I think, of 61, late November, early December of 61, and the Federation was formally wound up in May of 62. What happened then was that those of us from Trinidad and Tobago who had received training under the federal government were then invited now to become the nucleus of the Trinidad and Tobago Foreign Service. So it was Frank Abdullah, it was Eustace Seigneuret, it was Wilfred Naimul, it was Solomon Lutchman, who is unfortunately no longer with us, Dennis Solomon, and I. 5 of us formed the nucleus of the Foreign Service of Trinidad and Tobago in the few months before independence in August. So, he was interested in Europe. At that time, it was the European Economic Community, and he was very interested in that. He knew a great deal about it, I have to say. Yes, we did give lectures and sort of seminars to permanent secretaries. So there we were, junior people, telling the permanent secretaries in Trinidad and Tobago what to do, what not to do, how to do it, if it had to be done. Because they had been exposed, we had been exposed, and we had to guide. We wrote up papers on foreign policy, what position should we take towards the United States or Canada or Africa or India or wherever. Yes, we did all that. So it would be fair to say that yes, we did help to shape foreign policy in those early days. So all of us who had received the trainings were promptly sent out. I was sent to Washington. Ellis Clark, the late Ellis Clark, Sir Ellis Clark, was then the ambassador. So Dennis Solomon and I were sent out there. Eustace Seigneuret was sent to New York. Wilfred Naimul was sent to Canada. Solomon Lutchman was sent to Caracas. And we stayed out there and did what we could because very small staff. And there's very little, and Washington is a very difficult city if you want to do your work properly. Extremely difficult city. But we did what we could. We could not cover the bases. It's not possible. The embassy was not big enough for that. If we were the size of the British embassy or the size of the Japanese embassy, yes. But you're a small embassy with 4 or 5 people in it, and you simply can't do too much. So you have to concentrate on what are put to you as the prime interests of Trinidad and Tobago. What are the priorities? It is trade or whatever. If it is nationals, trying to get nationals to come back home to work at least for a period, train nationals, whatever it happens to be. You had there's tourism where you're trying to get people to visit from the United States. You had to try and you had to prioritize. I tried, without too much success, to get the government of Trinidad and Tobago more interested in links with Africa. At the time, in '73, we not only had that embassy in Ethiopia, but the government had set up a high commission in Lagos as well, which was then the capital of Nigeria. They now moved to Abuja. But Lagos was the capital then. John Donaldson, the former minister, was the High Commissioner. And Donaldson and I tried to get a greater interest, not on the basis of race, although people would say so, but on the basis of interests. You need people from the developing world if you want to push your agenda, whatever the agenda happens to be, forward. You have to work with people from the developing world. Trinidad and Tobago is a small place. What influence do we have on world affairs? The post that I think I enjoyed most in terms of relations across the board, including technical cooperation was India. It was India. So I spent a lot of my time in Washington, walking the halls of Congress, because that's where the power is, Congress and the White House. Yeah. Walking the halls of Congress, speaking to senators, speaking to congressmen, to try to get them to understand what was happening in the Caribbean and to make it easier for exports to go into the United States without all the duties that other people would have to pay. We even managed to get through a lot of lobbying at the White House. Reagan was the president at the time. We managed to get Belize, because Belize had been excluded from the Caribbean Basin Initiative on the ground that it was a Central American state and not Caribbean. And we argued for Belize. There were three of us who were chosen to represent the CARICOM missions there. We worked with the Export-Import Bank, of course, in terms of investment, and so on and so on. We even, I tried to get an investment here in Tobago for Bacolete.
Really?
Yes. To set up a couple of hotels right outside there, off the Claude Noel Highway.
At the birth of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on September 24th, it was indisputable that Tobago was distinctly shaping the polity, economy, and society of the nation. The National Awards Committee, which comprised of Trinidadians, had found it necessary to bestow high honor on about 13 Tobago sons and daughters in the 7 years since this National Awards was inaugurated. However, a Trinity Cross still eluded the Tobago child at that time, and no Tobagonian had received the coveted Sports Personality of the Year award. That title in 1976 went to the country's first gold medalist in the Olympic competition, Hasely Crawford. Tobago athletics quality was primarily limited to field events, and there was growing respect for the Tobago throwers, but none had progressed to national teams for major international meets. Roy Alfred made a Carifta Games team in 1978 and went on to win the first gold medal in shot put by a TNT athlete. And he also became Tobago's first double medalist in Carifta when he captured silver in discus competition. He did not appear in another Carifta Games and faded from the spotlight quickly thereafter, although his distances were not surpassed for several years by his countrymen. Two sprinters eventually broke into the national team for overseas competition in 1978. Rebecca Roberts was a barefooted sensation who held both the national junior 100 and 200 meters records at the age of 15. She made the Commonwealth Games women's relay team, running with the likes of Janice Bernard. Linton Williams was also the best senior runner Tobago had seen, and he rivaled the best home-based sprinters in the country. In 1978, he participated and performed with distinction in local meets and was named in the Commonwealth Games relay team, and also competed in the Pan American Games relay team in the following year, 1979. The nursery for these newfound sprint talents was the annual Village Olympics, and Kenan Bonacord excelled for a few years in this competition. Boxing would also see a revival with Claude Noel, the Roxborough-born fighter who secured the National Lightweight Crown in 1973, and who was involved in two epic battles with the flashy Guyanese Lennox Blackmore in the 1976-77 period. These contests made local promoters salivate with the prospect of massive crowds following for boxing in Trinidad.
To become lightweight champion of Trinidad and Tobago, I fought Fitzroy Giuseppe. Fitzroy Giuseppe then had over 49 fights under his belt, international fights. He had already fought for the World Lightweight Championship of the world against a guy from Korea, which he did lose. When I went to fight for that championship fight with Fitzroy, I wasn't given an opportunity or a chance to win that fight.
It was against all odds.
It was against all odds. Even Carlos Mark at the point in time told me, Claude, it's a tight fight. I fought a guy they call, he was from Panama.
Was he a world rank fighter? Because
I don't know if he was world ranked or what, but it was an international title we was fighting for.
And where was that fight held?
That fight was held in Trinidad.
Right.
In Trinidad. We went, I think I stopped that guy in the 8th round, something like that. I think I stopped him in the 8th round for the title.
For the Latin American. And this was when you now entered into the top 10 rankings of the WBC.
Yeah.
Right? So you were now in an arena where the prize money for you could look a little healthy.
A little bit healthy, so to speak.
Right. So tell us now a bit about your experiences as Latin American champion and some of the fights you would have had outside of Trinidad, because you had a lot of fights in the beginning in Trinidad. Where was the first place that you fought outside of Trinidad and Tobago, and what success you had?
The first place that I fought outside of Trinidad and Tobago, that was in Orlando, Florida. I went out there and I was campaigning in America then, in Orlando, Florida. And one of the first fights that I fought was from a guy they call Warren Matthews.
Now you can see it on the fighter on the left. That is Claude Noel of Trinidad, #1 contender. And Gonzalez keeps backing away. And now Noel does the backing away, and Gonzalez usually likes to fight moving forward.
Elizabeth Dennis, in the late 1970s, inspired Trinidad girls to pick up corkball cricket with her batting exploits for the national women's cricket team and eventually the West Indies women's team, which in those days had limited opportunities for overseas competition.
Well, I started playing cricket officially in 1973 with the Mason Hall Cricket Club. There was a player who used to play for Mongrace at the time by the name of Angela Balfour. She left Mongrace and came to Mason Hall, where she is originally from, and opened a team. Avengers Cricket Club was then Gaylords at the time. They renamed it Avengers. I became the captain of the team. Got picked on the national. We went to Trinidad national trials. I got picked in 1975 with the national team. Well, Louise Brown, she used to do everything. She used to bowl, bat, wicket keep, everything. You have Anne Brown, you had Shirley-Ann Bonaparte, Caroline James, had a few, Envis Williams. From there, well, we had people like Mr. Bertil Sinclair. He helped me a lot. Beside what I knew, Mr. Bertil Sinclair helped me a lot, you know, coaching us. And I made the national team that year for the first player from Mason Hall. Then in 1982, they picked a West Indies team in 1980 where I was a reserve. But they went nowhere. That trip was to go to Australia. They went nowhere. Then in 1982, they pick a national team to go to Jamaica. And I had people like Clint York, Neil Skeet, John Pollard. They helped me a lot, along with Etelbot Thomas and Roy Edwards. They helped me a lot. I made 150 not out. That time 50 overs now. And I made 150 not out. I had the bowlers, I heard the bowlers in Jamaica that they are not bowling for me. And the captain had to take and bowl herself, Jennifer Sterling. She took the ball and bowled it herself. They had a bowler by the name of Big Bull, had the St. Lucian girls running. I said, if she only bowled to me, knowing how those boys used to bowl to me in the nets on the concrete, I said, if she bowled to me, she came like a spinner in a hurry. Well, my year 1982, in which I won the Vitco Awards, in the local competition, I made about 3 centuries. I could remember very well against Skin and Bonaccord, I made 140 not out. We won the competition that year. We went to Trinidad, we had the trials there and got picked on the national team. I made 500 and something runs. I made in the Caribbean tournament and locally 500. I took 42 wickets. I had a batting average of 82. Went up for Vitco Awards. I remember when Miss Jean Camino, who was the secretary of the Trinidad and Tobago Women's Cricket Association, said, we are sending you up for Vitco Awards. I was so bashful. I said, who, me? You know, them time I young. She said, yes, we are sending you up. And when I went up, I was on the TV there, I was sitting there, and I turned and I said, my God, I wonder how I will feel if I win this. And when I heard my name called, but I was always a brave person, eh? When I heard my name called, I just got up and I smiled. And I went up and, oh boy, I remember when they asked me about how I get so good, you know. I said, well, I was a tomboy. I used to play outer man. And the whole complex started laughing. You know, yeah, it was nice. It was a great.
We're here today on Tobago Chronicles with another graduate of the Push Foundation's Youth Build program. And we're here with Aisha Guy, who I think is the first female we are speaking to who's been in this program. So Aisha, it's a pleasure to speak with you and welcome to Tobago Chronicles.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Okay, so I want to take you on a trip down memory lane. And so the Youth Build program, what cycle were you in?
My cycle was cycle 3.
Okay.
Around 2002, I believe it was.
Right.
Yes.
I think I actually remember when you were in Youth Build program. I would have worked at the Department of Youth Affairs at the time.
Oh, yes.
So those were good days.
Yes, they were.
Definitely. So tell me, what stands out for you being a participant in the Youth Build program?
I think 3 programs especially stood out for me. That is of the Icons and Legends. That is where we had a community program where you go into the community and you do some research, investigation as well as the people who contributed to the development of the village as well as Tobago. And you know, doing that sort of research, I got to find out some really, really amazing history about The village that I am from, Mason Hall, I enjoyed it a lot. I found out some really, I don't know how to put it, but it was really interesting that to find out that Mr. Eustace Dennis, our first black police commissioner, was from Mason Hall. And I think that took on a different life, a different perspective for me, in that it opened up a hunger inside of me to learn more about history, to grow. And at that particular stage, even in Youth Build itself, I wasn't even self-aware of that sort of passion that I had for history. And when I did that program, I realized just how much I love history.
So Youth Build unearthed that in you?
Yes.
And where did that lead?
That led me to the Tobago Museum.
The
historical museum, where I now work as a museum assistant. I take part in different programs, different research programs. We also get involved with different universities that come from different parts of the world. You get to travel, you get to go and get different development as well. So all of that opened up a whole new door and opportunity for me.
So you see a direct benefit of having been in the Youth Build program and now. What else stood out for you in the Youth Build? I know we talked about with other persons orientation, some of the trips that you went on, the skills that you learned.
Another thing that stood out for me was drama. I am the person that liked to kind of like shy away from the crowd, shy away from stuff. So the taking part in drama was like, I don't think so. But our facilitator, Mr. Tabiti, pushed me. He pushed me to a limit that where at one point in time, I think he was really trying to push my buttons. He wanted me to express myself in such a way that for me it was like, no, I can't let this person out. I can't let this person out. But he didn't stop. He kept on pushing and pushing until it just came out. And what came out was I ended up acting in one of the lead role as it was a carnival production above everything else. And it was from an era of the old-time carnival and the old-time characters and making costumes from feathers and so forth. So it was like, oh my goodness, look where I am. Look what am I doing? I don't even know myself. But amazingly, I did really well. I excel in it. Definitely not a part that I would like to go down still, but it really brought out another side of me that I didn't know I had, and that stood out for me a lot. The trip to Trinidad for me was amazing. I really didn't approach it with any expectation or anything. I'm like, okay, we're going to Trinidad, okay, we're going to visit different sites, different places. Okay, sounds a little bit more like school day stuff, so I didn't really, it wasn't like, okay, let's go. But when we went to, I believe it's what you call a halfway house, that first left a big impression on me, and speaking to some of the guys there and learning of sometimes what happened to them along the way in life that made them end up in that situation, and the discipline and some of the things that they have to do in the house as well to maintain, just a simple living there and so forth. It was an eye-opener for me in the sense that, right here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have, these kinds of situations that really heart-wrenching. And the other one was visiting the home for the aged. the elderly. That too was sad. I remember at one point in time, a lot of us within the Youth Build group, as young people, we were talking together, and we were really heartbroken to see how these senior folks and where they were, and it seems as though no one was visiting them, and we was like, oh, this is so heartbreaking. And we was like, you know what, even in Tobago where we have different senior folks at these homes, you must go and look for them more often. Don't become so distant, don't let that generational gap keep us from connecting with them. Because even with some of the senior folks, when we went and we started talking to them, to hear the kind of knowledge and the experience that they had, sometimes you will watch them and you say, but when you sit and you talk to them, you feel so connected. You feel so a part of. You feel that you could give more and be more part of their life as well as your community. So it gives us a sense of belonging and purpose as well. So that trip really did something for me there. Even visiting different factories, the wildlife trust, first time I've ever seen the scarlet ibis. It was really...
and how old were you then?
I was at that top end of the age group to enter Youth Build. I was 25 years old.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
So I was just about right there. And first time I saw our national bird, the scarlet ibis. So it was really nice, that one, and interacting with your teammates and so forth, listening to comments, listening to the different point of view of the different places and we went, also helped me to internalize certain things about myself as well, and to make me even examine who am I and what I am willing to contribute as well. What will be my legacy behind? How would I encourage somebody when they come along? So all of that played a part in me really remembering that particular part of the program and the impact that it made on me as well. Another thing about, as I said, these particular program left a lasting impression on me, because I talk about it a lot of the time, even when I relate to different stories with my niece, about one of the tour guides that we had. And the tour guide, she was giving us historical bits of different parts of Tobago, as in Trinidad, as we travel along.
Yes.
And as a way of connecting with us as young people, she gave us a story about herself, when she was pregnant, and a snake and so forth. So all of that was just like, sweet memories.
Okay, so I want to bring you forward a bit, because just as you speak, and I can feel your passion and the excitement, it's as if you're really back there in Youth Build, and those must have been some great times for you. But jumping forward, I understand that you remain connected with the organization that would have managed the Youth Build program, the Push Foundation, and also being part of some of the other exploits of the Push Foundation. Tell us how that has been for you and what is your involvement.
Okay, so first I would like to start with being the secretary of the Push Foundation.
Okay.
So Mr. Andre Philip, for me, is like, he saw some sort of, I don't know, must be passion, could be, or maybe a way to help further develop me. But he saw it and he asked me if I would like to join the Push Foundation and be a part of the whole movement. I accepted. I became the secretary, where I respond to different correspondence, set up different meetings, and even, sometimes we would go and we sit down and discuss about different programs, how we could enhance certain things, who we could address, and even involvement in there was one thing that come to mind. I'm trying to remember exactly. I remember we did a presentation, or a thank you presentation to Mr. London, Mr. Orville London.
Right.
That was nice. It was simple. I didn't really speak that much, but it was nice. It was memorable as well. And it didn't just stop at me just being the secretary. The connection with me working as a museum assistant and getting different training in the museum with the archives, the exhibition and so forth. Mr. Philip approached me and told me that he wanted to go ahead to do Pioneers.
Yes.
With the Pioneers Gallery, and he asked me to come along and be a part of that program, which I came along with a lot of ideas, a lot of enthusiasm, and I gave my ideas and how we could go about doing things. And the beautiful thing with Mr. Philip is that as a young person, sometimes, well, for me, there are times I'd be a little bit intimidated by someone, especially with their experience. So I tend to pull back a little.
Yes.
He was like, no. Tell me.
You can do it, yes.
Tell me what it is that you have in mind, what you think we should do, how we should. And he was very encourageable in that for the time I give an idea, sometimes I would say like, maybe that's not a good idea. He'd be like, no, I love it.
Yes.
How you think we could advance on it, explore on it, expand on it? And I would just, from the time he's just start something 1 or 2 words, and I just keep going. And he will stand and he will watch me and he will smile. He said, "You are amazing." I would be like, "Really?" He said, "Yes, you have no idea the talent that you have and the knowledge that you have. Once pushed, it could be explored and so forth." And I would like to thank him because he really created self-esteem and confidence in me that I thought that
didn't exist.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was happy about that.
Well, I think it's really has been a pleasure talking with you, hearing of your experiences, and I think you really embody what the Youth Build and the Push Foundation has been trying to do, and the essence of your service kind of connects all of them. So I want to thank you so very much for sharing of yourself and your experience with the Youth Build and the Push Foundation. Any final words you want to say?
I'd just like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to express myself on such a platform as this. I really pray and hope that the heads and the body and those that be in authority give programs like these
Yes.
the chance to impact the young people that we have now, their lives, and their chance to, explore their talent in such a way. It's different from being in a school setting, as to when you're in a setting like this. It's just a different sort of atmosphere. So, given that chance, I think that more young people will become, I believe, a more holistic person and a contributor to society on our own.
All right, thank you very much. Well said. We've been chatting with Aisha Guy, Secretary of the Push Foundation, past graduate of the Youth Build program.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.